Good afternoon, everyone. The Standing Committee on Heritage, Infrastructure and Cultural Policy will now come to order. We are here to resume public hearings on Bill 134, an act to amend the Development Charges Act 1997 and the St. Thomas Central Elgin Boundary Adjustment Act 2023. Today's remaining presenters have been scheduled in groups of 3 for each 1-hour time slot, with each presenter allotted 7 minutes for an opening statement, followed by 39 minutes of questioning for all 3 witnesses, divided into 2 rounds of 7.5 minutes for the government members, 2 rounds of 7.5 minutes for the official opposition members, and 2 rounds of 4.5 minutes for the independent member of the committee. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, our 1 o'clock group are, I believe, all at the table here. Nina Deeb, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Federation of South Toronto Residents Associations. Just in the order I read them, Nina, if you would like to state your name, and you have 7 minutes for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chair, and through you. My name is Nina Deeb. I am a real estate broker. I've been a full-time realtor since 1996. On this act, so development charges, otherwise known as lot levies, were introduced in Ontario in the early 1980s. This was the creation of a new tax. This concept was that growth should pay for growth, and the existing population would not be paying for the new subdivisions that are being built. Development was paying for the new infrastructure. Therefore, this tax was front-loaded onto the cost of new homes. Over 40 years, what was recoverable under development charges has been expanded. The development taxes of today have surpassed the price of a single detached home in Ontario when this tax was introduced. Development charge waivers were introduced in the 90s to revitalize city core areas, among other municipal priorities. This waiver meant the development taxes were shifted to the rest of the tax base. This practice has been recently expanded to waive any development taxes on any housing project that meets the definition of affordable. Developers have been empowered with shifting their tax responsibilities onto taxpayers province-wide. I would like to delete Schedule 1. Changing definitions of affordability will not be making housing affordable. Linguistics are being used to diminish housing affordability and to shift developer taxation to the people of Ontario. Over the last 47 years, the province of Ontario has been setting many places at the table for private corporations to add on inflation to the cost of housing. One of these examples recently is the Condominium Authority of Ontario. These private corporations at the expense of housing participants. 6 Ontario condominium residents died within 1 year of the Condominium Authority's tribunal's expansion of arbitration dispute resolution powers. All delegated authorities must be abolished. These authorities break the law they're entrusted with. Private corporations are mandating billions of dollars to themselves. These private corporations are run by former members of Parliament, top public service staff, and their partisan loyalists. These corporations do not pay taxes. They provide no value to society. They have no product. All these corporations do is eat. Consumer protection is protection for corporations. Organized real estate in Ontario was released into self-regulation in 1997. This partisan group that claims to have released it also captured it by appointing their loyalists and party members to the executive composition of these corporations. Examples are the Ontario Real Estate Association, Tarion, HCRA, CAO, BAO, etc. There's others. This is a policy loophole of redefinition and recategorizing to force funds from others. All the one-person opinion and one-person rule legislation must be repealed. The individuals with this power include registrars of private corporations, mayors, and ministers. All delegate authorities should be abolished. These are often the private businesses of former politicians and the top public service officials. This is a network consortium of 108 private corporations.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Deeb. Can you just back away a little bit from the microphone? It's just hurting us here a little bit on the recording. Thank you. Just back up a little bit more.
Sure. This is a network consortium of 108 private corporations. Their financial harvest of billions of dollars per year is not taxed. Their businesses are protected from the provincial independent watchdogs.
Somehow,
still
don't
loud?
lean forward. Yeah, you're leaning
Loud?
into it. I'm sorry, just to be. It's just.
the
There you
seat.
go.
I'm tipped into it by the seat.
Yeah, don't tip in. Don't get so close. That's great. Thanks so much. Sorry about that.
These are often the private businesses of former politicians and top public service officials. This is a network consortium of 108 private corporations. Their financial harvest of billions of dollars per year is not taxed. Their businesses are protected from the provincial independent watchdogs. These private partisan corporations are running a wealth transfer system. These corporations break the law. In conclusion, I would like to say that all the new corporations created in positions of authority since 1976 must be abolished. Monopoly power authority must never leave government. These are political corporations. Waiving taxation responsibilities onto taxpayers is undemocratic. Developers do not share their profits with the people of Ontario. The people of Ontario are not interested in paying the taxes of developers. The definition of affordable housing must be based on the net income of the people of Ontario. All the people of Ontario. This includes the people of Ontario on no DSP. This includes the people of Ontario that are single parents. This includes everyone in Ontario. This definition must be all-encompassing. We can't hook the definition up to market. The market will not provide the housing that we need for individuals living on ODSP, but these are individuals that live in our province, and we must provide all this housing. When the federal government stepped away in the early 90s and downloaded housing responsibilities to the provinces turned around and downloaded this responsibility to the municipalities. The municipalities need the assistance to do the job that has been given to them. They've been given the responsibility of housing, and then they're handcuffed and shackled in being able to provide this very important service. The reason housing is so important is because without housing, everything else falls like dominoes. Everything will cost us more. The people of Ontario will fail if they don't have housing. Sometimes they die. So housing is very important for government to play a very active role in, not to step away from. We need assistance to the municipalities, not handcuffs. We need money to be headed to the municipalities. The municipalities can make their acquisitions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll now move to these. On the link, so is the Association of Municipalities to go? You just, thank you, and just state your name before you begin speaking for answer purposes. Thank you.
My name is Lindsay Jones. I'm the Policy and Government Relations Director at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Hopefully our president, Regional Councillor Colin Best, is, there we go, has joined us on the link. So I will turn things over to Colin to kick us off with some remarks.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Madam Chair and the committee members for affording me the opportunity to address the committee today. My name is Colin Best, the President of the Association and also known as AMO, and Lindsay's already introduced herself. As you know, municipalities are deeply committed to addressing the housing supply and affordability crisis. Municipalities continue to do everything within their power to meet the province's ambitious target of building 1.5 million homes by 2031. AMO has been pleased with the recent shift in the government's tone and approach to collaboration with municipalities on housing file under Mr. Caladandra's leadership. Having all orders of government working together with each other and the broader housing partners is the only way Ontario will make progress. AMO approaches all policy proposals on housing by asking, will this produce more housing of all kinds for all income levels? Bill 134 makes critical steps towards these goals by including an income-based component in definition of affordable housing. Any definition of affordable housing needs to consider everyone's ability to pay the rent. We commend the government for responding to AMO's request to update the definition of affordable housing to better target development fee discounts. This change will be much more effective in trying to incent the construction of more affordable units. While these changes are important, there remain a number of outstanding details that need to be finalized before municipalities can understand with certainty the fiscal impacts of this measure and begin implementation. We urge the government to move quickly to issue a ministerial's affordable housing bulletin to ensure municipalities' 2024 budgets are informed by a clear understanding of these impacts. We also urge the government to address the significant administrative questions regarding how the province will ensure that these new units will remain affordable over time. Bill 134 does not include a definition of attainable housing, a category of housing that Bill 23 also exempts from development charges. Attainable housing is a new concept which is not fully defined or understood. AMO has requested the government officially defer moving forward on exempting development fees for attainable housing until the province is able to assess the effectiveness of affordable housing development charge exemptions. A continual deferral would increase the effectiveness of measures to incent affordable housing for those who are most in need. Commuting the official deferral of these measures to until at least 2027 will provide stability and predictability for municipalities and builders. As part of the province's Bill 134 news release, it announced a plan to consult on regulatory changes to streamline Ontario's land tribunal decisions. AMO endorses these changes in principle as accelerating decisions can support growth targets. However, it's been almost 2 months since the announcement and the consultations have not been initiated. We urge you to move quickly in consultation with municipalities to make these changes. Our sector needs every lever possible to support new housing. We can't remark on Bill 134's changes to support affordable housing without raising the bigger issue of housing enabling infrastructure. Last November, the government made an important commitment to fully offset the financial impacts of Bill 23. AMO is pleased that the province is moving forward with the additional steps to adjust and support effective Bill 23 implementation, including changing the affordable residential units definition. However, it is not sufficient to solve the affordable housing crisis, nor meet the government's commitment to fully offset the costs of Bill 23. Recent infrastructure announcements for the Building Faster Fund and Municipal Water Infrastructure Fund are positive steps toward the province fulfilling its commitment of making municipalities whole following its gutting of the municipal infrastructure revenue source. However, a significant gap remains. AMO estimates that Bill 23 created a $1 billion a year infrastructure gap for municipalities over the next 10 years. Recent provincial infrastructure announcements have the potential to make good progress, but will not provide all that's necessary to support growth targets. AMO continues to call for clarity on how and when the province will keep its commitment to make municipalities whole. Municipal budget discussions for 2024 are well underway. I'm currently in one right now. The continued uncertainty around how the government plans to fulfill its commitment to make municipalities whole from the impacts of Bill 23 is forcing municipalities to make long-term decisions, billion-dollar decisions, without all the facts. Municipalities urgently need this clarity, or we will continue to see canceled or deferred infrastructure projects that will put at risk the province's housing targets. Solving the housing crisis is a major shared challenge. It requires innovative approaches, significant additional funding, and true partnership among all levels of government. AMO's members are wholeheartedly committed to these endeavors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now move to the Federation of South Toronto Residents Associations. If you would please state your name, and you have up to 7 minutes, please.
Sure, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm able to share the screen. It's all good. And the name. Thank you. So I'm going to quickly introduce myself, and I'll share the screen. Okay. So my name is Walid Kogali Ali, and I'll start off by thanking members of Provincial Parliament for the opportunity to depute on behalf of the Federation of South Toronto Residents Association, FOSTRA, which is a federation that currently represents 25 residents associations in the 5 downtown Toronto wards, so specifically wards 4, 9, 10, 11, and 13, which encompasses hundreds of thousands of Toronto residents. So in our written submission, Foster submits a certain model that should be incorporated in Bill 134, which is the Affordable Homes and Good Jobs Act. Specifically, we support the direction to define affordable rent based on a percentage of household income. We're also deeply concerned that the definition of affordable rent tied solely to the 60th percentile of gross annual income, incomes in municipalities like Toronto will actually make rents dangerously unaffordable for many Toronto residents. Further considerations of how to determine affordable rent as a function of income are very crucial. So we recommend a two-tiered approach to rental affordability in the interest of equity and inclusivity. So the first one, and we actually have a nice infographic that I was hoping to share to this on the screen, so I'll try after the end of my submission, because I want to engage all of you visually as well on what those, what the approach looks like. So the mainstream affordable housing, what we would like our lawmakers to consider is that this definition is defined as 30% of the 50th percentile of household income, accommodating the median income earner and ensuring broader applicability of the term affordable. The second category is deeply affordable housing, a second tier dedicated to those that are or below the 30th percentile of income. For these households, a rent geared to income program that stipulates housing costs at 30% of household income will be more appropriate and humane. We also recommend a reserve fund mandate for the maintenance of affordable housing as a prudent addition to ensure the longevity and quality of housing stock. What we don't want is to lose the current stock that we have due to the lack of maintenance. The current proposed legislation as it stands does not sufficiently encompass the lower income brackets. In Toronto, for example, where the 60th percentile of income is approximately $92,000 annually, the definition of affordable at 30% of this income does not serve low to moderate income households, effectively excluding a significant portion of our community. For those at the 30 percentile, dedicating 30% of 60 percentile income of housing costs will consume over 85% of their total income, a stark indication of the inadequacies of the current model. So, for example, the City of Toronto's current definition of affordable rent is based on 30% of household incomes between the 30th and 60th percentiles, which is more humane, but still requires a careful revaluation. Specifically, while the upper limit might appear generous, the 30th percentile threshold seems markedly inadequate. No family, and I just want to repeat this, no family should allocate more than 50% of their income towards housing. that is devastating. So therefore, a more equitable formula will be a 30% of the average household income, or the 50th percentile. This will better reflect the median economic realities faced by the residents of the City of Toronto. So our recommendations to address these concerns, we are recommending a two-tiered approach to affordability, specifically the mainstream affordable housing, which I earlier defined as 30% of the 50th percentile of household income, accommodating the median income earner, and ensuring broader applicability of the term affordable. Then the second is deeply affordable housing, which is a second tier that's dedicated to those at or below the 30th percentile of income. For these households, a rent-geared-to-income program that stipulates housing costs at 30% of household income would be more appropriate and humane. This tiered approach will not only align with the principles of equity and inclusivity, but will also ensure that the spectrum of income levels within the city is addressed in a manner that is both fair and practical. It is imperative that the forthcoming affordable housing bulletins reflect these nuances to enable municipalities to implement solutions that are congruent with the lived experiences of all residents. Moreover, the importance of a sustainable funding model to support the development and maintenance of affordable housing cannot be understated. The potential exemption of development charges for housing that meets the newly proposed criteria necessitates the introduction of alternative financial mechanisms.
50 seconds left.
So in conclusion, thank you, Madam Chair, the province is strongly urged to revisit the affordability definition to include a dual-tiered income-based approach, ensuring that housing affordability measures are more than one-size-fits-all solution, but are tailored to meet the diverse needs of our city's populations and growing cities, municipalities across the province of Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our presenters. We'll now begin with questions, and we're going to start with the official opposition. MPP Bell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the presenters that have come here in person, as well as the President of AMO, who's here online. My first questions are to AMO. I have a few. The first one is, do you have an assessment on whether the private sector is going to build these affordable homes that they're going to get development fee exemptions for? Have you done any analysis on that to see if it's going to work?
It's a great question. I think that's one that municipalities are definitely highly engaged in. No, we don't have an analysis. However, we do think that developers are motivated by a variety of different responsibilities to shareholders and are driven by different kinds of incentives than are, for example, municipal governments or not-for-profits. So there's no question that the approach to ensuring that we increase the supply of both affordable housing and deeply affordable housing cannot depend on developers alone and needs to include a range of different public policy instruments and approaches to ensure that we are able to increase the supply that, of course, has been eroded significantly over the past number of decades.
This is a second related question. You know, I was here during Bill 23, and I was shocked to see that a lot of the development fee exemptions meant that there'd be less money going to affordable housing and shelters. And this is a development fee reduction that doesn't just apply to affordable housing units, it applies to every single unit that is built. Did you do a calculation on how much funding municipalities have lost as a result of Bill 23 and how much less money is going to affordable housing construction and shelters?
So the global figure that we did estimate was that municipalities have lost now approximately $1 billion each year for 10 years. And that includes almost $500 million that would be available to support housing services. That's one of the most critical elements that AMO has urged the government to reconsider under Bill 23, which is the ability for municipalities to charge development fees to support housing services. It's created a huge gap in municipalities' ability to invest in community housing as well as the shelter system. So those are positions that we will continue to urge the government to reconsider going forward.
Thank you. That's also something we've noticed as well, because...
Point of order. I need to correct a piece of information. The member opposite said that all the units are subjected to the discount or the reduced developer charge. That's not correct.
Yes, it is.
No.
Okay, well... Yeah, it's not a valid point of order. I'm happy you can send information afterwards, but I think it is.
Thank you.
Okay. My additional question, see, when I look at this definition of affordable housing and I look at, what impact it's going to have, my skepticism is that the private sector's had a very long time to build affordable housing, and we're not seeing affordable housing being built. And I'm worried that even with these changes, it's going to result in a net loss of affordable housing construction, especially when you factor in the $500 million in funding that is projected to be taken out of affordable housing construction and maintenance because of Bill 23. Given your, I'd love to hear your assessment. Are you doing an assessment on how many affordable homes the for-profit private sector is building in municipalities? Do you have numbers on that?
We are definitely focused on being able to understand what the needs are across the province with respect to deeply affordable housing. We are committed to engaging with both the provincial and the federal governments to urge additional investments be made to enable both municipalities and not-for-profit developers and corporations to be able to increase the overall supply. We don't think that the answer lies in developers and the private sector alone, but there needs to be partnership and an increased capacity both for the overall public sector housing developers as well as municipalities to be able to make additional investments in this space that have been eroded significantly over time.
Thank you for that answer. I also share my concerns with just relying on the private sector alone to build affordable housing. I see huge value in incentivizing and encouraging non-market housing and helping municipalities build non-market housing. My final question is to Mr. Waleed Kagali from Foster. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I was listening very carefully when you talked about the need to have two definitions of affordable housing. A definition of affordable housing that caters more towards the moderate income level, middle income people, which is this definition, and then also having this definition of deeply affordable housing that's really going to address the thousands of people that are waiting for community housing right now. People who are on social assistance, people who are low income on minimum wage. So when we're looking at these two definitions, has Foster done any kind of analysis on what kind of development fee reduction would apply to the affordable housing definition and what would apply to the deeply affordable housing definition?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. We're actually collecting a lot of data right now because there's been a lot of development applications across the city of Toronto. And unfortunately, at the municipal level, if you are in those committee hearings, you will understand the frustrations of the residents of Toronto. Specifically because most of the funding that's coming from our federal government and our provincial government is not restoring investments in the creation of rent geared to income units. What's basically happening is subsidizing for-profit, market-driven development with, come on my friends, in my deputation I said, who can afford 50% of the income to pay for housing? Like we can't live in a province where this is acceptable. right? So we need regulatory mechanisms, and this bill is one of the solutions.
Thank you. I'm sorry we're out of time, but there's more rounds. We'll now move to MPP McMahon for 4.5 minutes, please.
Great, thanks. It wasn't going to be this order, but it will be now. Do you want to finish that thought?
Thank you so much. Just to finish the thought is that we cannot have just policy and regulatory changes. We also need investments. Investments in restoring the housing stock that addresses the critical needs that we're facing across municipalities in Ontario, specifically because newcomers, new permanent residents, folks who are on a pathway to home ownership will not be able to access housing in many cities if we do not make the investments to create more rent geared to income units. The other suggestion that we've made throughout the submission is we need to have a fund that is created to deal with the maintenance of this affordable housing. We created this crisis when government stepped back and stopped investing in the maintenance and operations of our housing stock across municipalities. It created these conditions where it's now market driven. And we need those regulatory changes to capture more folks from living in conditions that are deplorable. No one should be paying 50% of their household income towards housing.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's, I lived that in 2011 when we had, about 600 Toronto community housing homes that the mayor at the time wanted to sell off because of the lack of repair. And we had these homes with the heating on in them, refrigerators running, and no one living in them for years and years and years. And it's finally being dealt with now, 12 years later. So I truly believe in your maintenance fund, your reserve fund mandate, and I think that's fabulous in addition to your other ideas. But I want to quickly go, and I only have 4.5 minutes, so we're speed talking here, unfortunately. So to AMO, to Colin or Lindsay, thanks for your presentation, everyone. So you're talking about how this bill does not contain attainable housing definition, and you're asking the government, the main ask is to postpone until we get that. The minister was here this morning, and he must have said a zillion times, he's speaking to the municipalities, he's speaking to the elected officials there. He's in talks, he's connected, and he's speaking with AMO. So given that beautiful conversation that's going on, endless conversations, where are you at with that, with the minister?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'll let Lindsay highlight that answer.
Absolutely. And as President Best remarked in his opening remarks, AMO has seen a marked shift in the overall approach to working with municipalities under this new minister. We've been very pleased to see some of the course corrections that have taken place, including in walking back some of the unilateral ministerial modifications to official plans, and taking a more collaborative approach to some discussions around infrastructure. We are hopeful that we will be able to continue these conversations going forward, to be able to focus in particular on the question of housing enabling infrastructure, on the question of how municipalities will be made whole from the impacts of Bill 23, where there remains significant uncertainty regarding next steps. And when it comes to the challenge of homelessness, and in particular its root causes related to income security, the lack of supply of deeply affordable housing, and the need for more robust mental health and addiction supports.
All right. And I think that's my time.
3
seconds. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the government side. MPP Coe, please.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. My question is directed to Association of Municipalities of Ontario. You talked about your level of engagement that you have, and I think most of the committee members here will know that that takes the form of regular meetings that was established through a memorandum of understanding, and that's still happening, isn't it, regularly?
Yes, the AMO MOU remains a critical part of the way that the province engages with municipalities on issues that have fiscal and policy implications for municipalities.
And that provides an opportunity to provide you with feedback on proposed policy directions and legislative directions, doesn't it?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to establish that there's an ongoing process, been well established for a number of years. Just hasn't started since we introduced the housing legislation.
That's correct. I believe it is. It's been in place since 2001.
Right. Thank you. Well, some of you will know that I served both on the Durham Regional Council and the local council in Whitby for a better part of 13 years. And for 11 of those years, I chaired the Planning and Development Committee. So as I travel through the region of Durham, and there's 8 municipalities that comprise that, I see a lot of construction underway, a lot of housing development underway, a variety of housing being built. And more recently, we just announced $5 million for the refuge in Oshawa, which is designed to help create 26 supportive housing units for homeless youth. Just illustrative of the level of activity, building activity, shovels in the ground in the region of Durham. Can you share with us what you're hearing from other municipalities, their level of need of municipality for more affordable housing? I know a majority have already set targets, but talk a little bit more broadly about their level of need. All sectors of the province, and maybe you can add to that level of discussion you're having with NOMA and ROMA as well on this subject in responding to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much for the question. I think as we saw in the last municipal election and on an ongoing basis since then, municipalities across the province, elected officials and councils have made housing the #1 priority. Both with respect to being able to support and drive growth, but also with respect to being able to respond to the growing homelessness crisis that we see in every corner of the province. Municipalities have, with very few exceptions, signed on to the housing target pledges that the province has set for the 50 largest municipalities to be able to move towards that 1.5 million new homes figure by 2031. And we're doing everything that we can within our ability to make those targets reality. It is definitely challenging circumstances, as no doubt everyone in this room will know, with the overall economic conditions, interest rates, the price of construction, both materials and labor. It is a challenge, but municipalities are finding innovative ways to be able to make things happen. And the investments that the government has made as part of the Building Faster Fund, and now with the new funding announced for water infrastructure, are a very important part of municipalities' ability to move forward on that target. There remains some significant questions with respect to financing of more housing enabling infrastructure that's required, and that is where we are hopeful that continued collaboration with the province around different ways of funding, be it re-examining development charges, be it working to call on the federal government to make investments in infrastructure, or additional provincial investments. Those are all areas that we are quite focused on. You asked me to speak a little bit about NOMA and ROMA. There are different needs in Ontario's smaller municipalities, but there are needs nonetheless. there continue to be challenges with being able to provide housing for a workforce to be able to support some of these industries, particularly in the north in terms of mining, or in smaller rural municipalities from a tourism and a hospitality perspective. So we urge the government not to forget about the smaller municipalities and what they need to be able to enable growth in their municipalities, separate and apart from those with housing targets.
Thank you very much for that response, and Chair, through you to my colleagues here.
MPP Sabawi, there's a minute and 50 seconds left.
I will do my best.
Just so you know. Yep.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chair. And my question for Dina, as I can see from the profile here that you are real estate brokerage. Okay.
Yes.
So out of your experience, let me try to ask you some questions based on your experience. The new family or younger families and new immigrants, they go for more for rentals or for buying?
They usually go for a rental.
Yep. What city you are from?
Pardon me?
What city you are from?
I'm from Cambridge.
Cambridge. Can you tell me when was the last time a rental building built in Cambridge?
There's some being built under construction right now. There's
not in the new ones based on our government.
So I would say the brand new ones are, I have 2016, 2017, roughly that. Everything since then has been condo, but there has been purpose-built rentals around 2016, 17.
Perfect. So in your opinion, we need to incentive building rentals?
We need specific rentals. We actually have a lot of rentals underway, but I'm looking for rentals for everybody, which includes the people living on ODSP and single parents. So that's the type of housing that's missing. We have a lot of units under construction. There's no doubt about that.
So do you agree with me that those incentives might help us to make some of the goals which AMO asked for, like having more supply to be able to meet the demand?
I'm sorry we're out of time, but that's okay. There's another round. So over to the official opposition. MPP Hardin, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming this afternoon. Very much appreciated. I'd like to focus the 7 minutes I have on housing affordability. I want to try to peel away some of what I'm hearing to try to understand, because that's the work of this committee, try to understand some of the levers the government is suggesting we pull to get to housing affordability. It would seem my friends of government are suggesting that supply only is the answer. My colleague from University of Rosedale's in the morning questioning with the minister talked about the tool of inclusionary zoning, a tool the City of Toronto has been asking for 2 years. 2 years. It's a tool that we've asked for in Ottawa. It's not been a tool that's been approved by the ministry. So I just want to talk about an adjacent issue, and that is, what do we do with the amount of publicly funded housing stock that we have for office buildings that is sitting vacant in so many of our communities? This is a huge issue for the City of Ottawa. But I noticed when the Minister of Infrastructure was before this committee on a different piece of legislation, we, in that conversation, deduced, I think germane to the discussion of Bill 134, that the Government of Ontario is currently sitting on 812 vacant properties in the province of Ontario. She mentioned in that discussion that they're doing an inventory to try to figure out how those properties could be reutilized. As my colleague has said previously, if we wanted to get Ontario back into the business of building affordable housing, do you think that could make, and I'll start with Mr. Kugali, do you think that could make a material difference so the government could work to set a price that families could afford?
Point of order, this is out of the bill.
MPP Sabawi, first of all, I have to address you and then talk to me. Go
Point
ahead.
of order.
Yep.
I think this is not actually part of that bill. Can we keep our discussion within the bill, please?
Okay, so it's really not a valid point of order. So keep
Thank
going
you.
with the question.
I just will say to my friend over there, Mr. Kugali, as you begin, the minister talked about affordable housing ad nauseum this morning, so let's give our friend an opportunity to do that. Go ahead.
Thank you, MPP Hardin. When you raise a critical point, and that is, what are we doing with housing stock that could be actually community controlled? So, for example, land trusts, co-ops. What I worry about is changes in government. Sometimes the government will be elected by the people of Ontario that prioritizes housing. Sometimes they don't. So how do we mitigate those circumstances that do come up? And I think the best way is to listen to what the community is saying. The community right now is looking into those models, the land trusts and co-ops, but municipalities are also being innovative by building on city land, because it's also about rent control, right? It's about other regulatory changes that make housing affordable. So I think it's critical for us to have a holistic approach. The increasing housing supply is great, but who are you building housing for? Are you building it for those that are in need of housing, or those that want to speculate with a housing stock so they could be multimillionaires? Right. So I think it's critical that we not just make the right investments, but have empower municipalities to come up with their own solutions. I will actually recommend that our provincial government, if they have nothing planned for the additional housing stock or real estate, pass it on to the municipalities. Let them work with communities to deliver housing that's needed. Sometimes it's supportive housing. Sometimes it's rent-to-own programs that address affordability, right? In Regent Park, I'll tell you a quick story. In 2011, houses were $330,000. If I took my mom's advice and put a down payment, I'll be a multimillionaire just by sitting in my living room for 5 years. This is what's happening in our communities. So thank you so much for that question.
No, I'm glad we're connecting on this, because it seems to me often in government or in public policy, we're very focused on the important announcements at future housing that will be built. But if we do have in our communities existing housing stock funded by the province of Ontario, funded by municipal governments, funded by the federal government, that is sitting vacant when neighbors are sleeping in the street, when our shelters are full, when international students are staying 12 to 15 to a room, seems to be an incredible waste of resources. I want to just mention, Chair, for the record, we do have a developer in Ottawa, John Constantino from CLV Group, who's partnered with the City of Ottawa to build something called Slate, which has been the repurposing of a federal office building in 2019 that now has 158 units, but the general price for most of those units is about $3,500 a month. The average rent in our city in Ottawa is $2,000 a month, but Mr. Constantino did feel a requirement, a social obligation, to have 10 units at a cost of $1,500 a month. This is a private developer doing a private initiative. Do you think, I'll turn to our friends at AMO, do you think there's an opportunity here for the provincial government, with this amendments we can make to this bill, to strike up a partnership with your members to figure out how Mr. Constantino's model, he's doing out of the goodness of his heart for his own enterprise, could be given some public funding with resources, building infrastructure we already have?
Thanks so much for the question. I think that there are so many different innovative ways that we can come at this challenge, and you're right to make sure that the debate doesn't just focus on building new, which takes a very long time, but that looks at strategies like retrofitting and repurposing, like enabling acquisitions as well for not-for-profit housing operators, as well as the income side of things, which is really the fastest way to keep people from falling into homelessness, right, which then, of course, requires a look at both the income security side of things and potentially some of the programs that are currently out there with respect to housing benefits.
45 seconds.
No question that being able to work with the private sector, with not-for-profit developers and municipalities to then explore what is possible is going to be the only way forward. So we would welcome, as municipalities, the ability to explore the art of the possible with private sector partners who are innovating in ways that are really exciting.
Thank you.
12 seconds still. Thank you. MPP McMahon for 4.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. And as you know, we all like to talk housing. We all want to build housing. It's just always the devil's in the details. And so first I have a kind of a specific question for AMO about the official plan amendments for, if you know anything about this, which I'm sure you must, protected major transit station areas. So I've heard from my residents and some housing experts about the holdup with that, waiting for the province. And I asked the minister about that this morning. The answer was, you know, because especially in Toronto, when is this going to happen? When is it going to be signed off on? And I got the ever detailed answer, soon. And so I was asking for a definition of soon. But have you heard about that from other communities? And what are your thoughts on getting that action so we can get shovels in the ground?
Well, AMO doesn't usually weigh in on the specific municipal issues, so I wouldn't be in a great position to be able to speak to specific decisions. We have, however, supported our municipalities in the kind of overall official plan process, which has definitely been evolving. For our first recommendation to the government is that approvals and plans and timelines, you know, there is definitely a need to streamline things, and it's not just about municipalities. It's also very much about provincial agencies and ministries and the time that their decision-making makes and adds to the development process. So we have urged the government to review its own approval times and to make changes to make things as streamlined as possible.
Okay, and I just have, I'm very short on time. Do we have your thoughts on us building and looking in our own backyard? We talk about NIMBYs, but we're not even looking in our own backyard, I don't think, to the fullest capacity for provincial lands. Do you think we're doing a good job on looking at provincial lands?
I think that there's a lot of...
Notice Colin's poker face and so for to Lindsay, but anyways, go ahead.
Definitely being able to make the best use of provincial lands, federal lands, municipal lands is a key recommendation that AMO has had with respect to supporting housing. And we are interested in partnering with the province to have more detailed discussions on that front going forward.
All right, super polite answer. I love it. So now we'll just do kind of a rapid round because I have a minute or so and a bit left. My standard question I ask, any sage advice, one piece of advice that you have for us as we consider Bill 134? So maybe we'll go Waleed first.
To adopt the foster submissions, the two-tier model, make it possible for many hard-working residents of Ontario to access a basic human right, which is housing. If we don't do something now, we're going to be setting future generations for failure. Folks are working not as twice as hard, but multiple jobs just to be able to access housing.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great. And Amo?
To address some of the uncertainties that are causing challenges for municipalities right now in moving forward, namely being able to take the opportunity to clarify that the development charge exemptions for attainable housing are currently on pause and will be on pause until 2027, and to reinstate housing services.
Okay.
That's the end of the time. Sorry. All right. Going to the government side for 7.5 minutes. MPP Sabawi, please.
Thank you very much, and I would like to just again address the supply issue. Like, in my opinion, changing the definition of affordable, deep affordable, not really affordable, slightly affordable, will add more layers of complexity in definitions of what we can define for different levels. And in the same time, we are still discussing like attainable and non-for-profit and rental, which is just 3 categories. We're still in discussions about that till date. Now we are trying to add more layers of affordability and deep affordability. My question is, if we extended the umbrella for more people to be eligible for affordable housing, when we don't have affordable housing, that will make the line longer. Instead of like staying for 3 years, they would stay for 7 years waiting for that. So again, in my opinion, and I hope to get your input in that, we need to have the supply so that we can service the people.
That's an excellent question and remark. I agree with you. We need more supply because our population is going to go up. So there's no disagreement there. But who are we building housing for? When we're talking about supply, who are you building the housing for? Is it for those folks who, we've got the data, right, from Statistics Canada, from the City of Toronto, they cannot afford to live in housing because the definition of affordable housing and the subsidies that our municipalities qualify for doesn't cover that need. So I think we need to be much more intentional in making sure that the supply is delivered correctly. We have the private market that will bring about a supply into the market, but we need to make sure that municipalities, non-for-profit organizations, land trusts, all those solutions are part of it so that cities can also take on the responsibility to ensure that the needs of local residents are met. Mayor Olivia Chow has been championing for more funding from the federal government. Our premier is on board with that agenda to secure more funding. But we don't want the funding to go specifically for market-based housing solutions. We need government intervention. We need housing stock through rent-geared to income programs that are administered by the cities for it to work. I love in Regent Park. I love that community. But not just because of how diverse it is socioeconomically, but because also we have a local social housing provider that is part of the solution. We need to make more investments in local housing social providers to make sure that there's more access to affordable housing.
I will leave the rest of the time for my colleague.
4.5 minutes.
Madam Chair, through you to AMO. So now we are in a housing crisis here. That's why we are driving the province in a crisis mode, not in a normal mode. So we have a lot to deal with in crisis, and we need to move fast. So I have heard that the municipalities has challenges when we are exempting some types of development, the development charge, right? So can you please, from your perspective, let us know that how do you understand those being exempted development? What are they?
Thanks so much. Bill 23 put in place a number of different exemptions in the context of development charges. Today we've talked about exemptions for the construction of affordable units and potentially attainable units, but additional changes that were made to the Development Act includes the eligibility of all of the different types of costs that can be included for under municipalities' development charges that cut across the entire spectrum of housing. So the exemption of things like the value of land or the cost of studies or the cost of housing services have really significant impacts on municipalities' ability to collect revenue to be able to fund growth. So those are areas that as you go forward, municipalities would like to engage further on potentially doing some course corrections there. With respect to affordable housing, AMO does support the changes that the government has put in place to put discounts in place for the construction of affordable units. with this new definition. We think that is a way that we can help to support not-for-profit developers to be able to move forward with some of the important work that they do.
So thank you for your answer. So I heard a lot of big money. So can you let us know that what will be the percentage that you're looking at? There are a lot of development charges that you are collecting for the municipalities, right? Mm-hmm. Now, those portion that being exempted cover how many % of the total development charge income?
It's challenging given that all of the municipalities are at different points with their development charge bylaws. And that is why we have estimated that once all of the changes are in place, that Bill 23 puts in place, it will be $1 billion a year.
Okay.
That
not
we are short.
Not the amount, percentage.
I couldn't be able to speak to that right now.
Because you know what, $1 billion is a big number, but if you got 100 billion income from development charge every year, 1 billion is nothing. If you got only 10 billion, that is maybe huge. If you got 2 billion, right? So my question is about the portion that I need to understand, because if we keep saying that it is a very hard impact, I need to know
50
how
seconds.
hard it is.
50 seconds.
It is a very significant impact that is having the effect of municipalities not being able to move ahead with projects for water and wastewater treatment plants, infrastructure that are needed to be able to support the increase in housing.
So still no portion that you can give us an answer.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for presenters for being here. I'll give you a second to leave the table and then a chance for the next set of presenters to come forward. So thank you again for being here today.